Thank you. How do you go on after that? Chairman Stern and members of the Board of Trustees, President Bacow and members of the faculty and staff, distinguished guests, proud family members and friends, and especially deserving and in one or two cases loud graduates. Yeah. I thank you all so much for the very warm welcome to your special occasion and for this wonderful and generous honor. I hope someday to become the man that the President just described. It's an extraordinary time. A few months ago, Americans went to the polls and elected a young, gifted, and black lawyer and community organizer to be President of the United States. And it gives me personally such pride to see your enthusiasm and the enthusiasm of people around the country and around the world for our new leader. I don't know how many of you were there in Washington on Inauguration Day, but the view from the platform where the governors get to sit was a thing I will not soon forget. The sweat and toil and setbacks and heartbreak of lasting change is just starting. The scope of the change we voted for and the nature of change itself guarantees that an uneven and sometimes bumpy road lies ahead. So we had better be clear about where we're going. I see that journey in very, very personal terms. Our youngest daughter, Catherine, graduated from high school a couple of years ago. And sitting at her graduation, I couldn't help but reflect on the difference between her journey to that milestone and my own to the same milestone nearly 35 years before. I grew up on welfare on the south side of Chicago in my grandparents' two-bedroom tenement. I shared a room there and a set of bunk beds with my mother and my sister. So you go from the top bunk to the bottom bunk to the floor every third night on the floor. I went to overcrowded and sometimes violent public schools. I can't think of a time when I didn't love to read, but I don't remember actually owning a book until I got my break in 1970 at age 14 to come to Massachusetts on a scholarship to boarding school. For me, that was like landing on a different planet. Now, Catherine, by contrast, has always had her own room. Most of that time in a house in a leafy neighborhood outside of Boston where I used to deliver newspapers when I was a student in boarding school. By the time she got to high school, she had already traveled on 4 continents. She knew how to use and pronounce a concierge. And she had shaken hands in the White House with the President of the United States. When Catherine was in kindergarten, her class was studying the changes in the seasons. Their homework assignment was to come home and describe to Mom and Dad the 4 seasons. So she proceeded to describe to us, by the way, in accurate detail, her several visits to the Four Seasons Hotel in Washington, D.C. She said, first you drive up and the doorman takes your car. 5 years old. 1 generation. Do you understand? 1 generation. And the circumstances of my life and my family's life were profoundly transformed. Now, that story doesn't get told as often as we'd like in this country, but it gets told more often in this country than any other place on earth. That is an American story. That is who we are. Who we are is that simple idea that through hard work, tenacity, preparation, and faith, each of us has a chance at the American story. Well, that American story is at risk today. More and more families are working harder and still losing ground. Homeowners are losing their homes. Some 5.7 million people have lost their jobs in the last 2 years, and many of those their way and their hope. Every individual, family, business, and not-for-profit in nearly every corner of our country is hurting or worried that soon they will be. That, beloved graduates, is the world you are about to inhabit. A society in many ways in anguish and an economy in crisis. And I want you to embrace it and embrace it all. Because crisis is a platform for change. Here at Tufts, you have been intentionally exposed to differences in thought and culture, to new ideas and new ways of thinking about old ideas, to wise and maybe sometimes odd professors and classmates alike, whose wisdom and oddities you may only have come to appreciate on the eve of this graduation. You have been trained to value service in the common good and to see leadership as service. You've been encouraged to imagine better tomorrows and then to reach for them. Or you could look clearly at what's wrong, as pragmatic idealists do, and set yourselves to make it right. And by the way, we've done it before. An earlier generation, facing dangers abroad and widespread suffering at home, summoned American aspirations and answered a call to service and to sacrifice. And that generation, what we now call the greatest generation, fought and won the war, rebuilt Europe and Japan, built the federal highway system, great public universities and other institutions, expanded the middle class, and ignited the modern civil rights struggle. That generation, through their service and their sacrifice, made it possible for many of the rest of us to live the American story. Well, we need to answer that call again and renew our commitment to the American story. I ask you, out of this crisis, to make a change. Make an economy that expands opportunity out to the marginalized, not just up to the well-connected. Make schools that ignite a love of learning in every child and that honor and support teachers. Make accessible and affordable health care a public good. Make streets and homes free from violence and a community that helps feed, clothe, and house our most fragile neighbors. No challenge, it turns out, is beyond our capacity to care about and to solve, so long as you, practical idealists, can imagine a better tomorrow and then reach for it. Now, what I am asking of you, what I am hoping for and counting on from you is not easy, but it is simpler than you may think. Because I believe that Americans in this moment in time are ready, even in the unexpected corners of our country, to serve and to sacrifice. My point is that even in the bleakest places, young people crave a reason to hope. You the graduates, must offer that reason. There is a new generation, even we here, who are ready to answer the call for service and sacrifice. That is the opportunity today's crisis presents. Seize it. And if we do, I'm confident our best days lie ahead. Good luck to you all. Thank you very much for this honor, and thank you for having me today.
Governor Patrick, thank you for those inspiring words, for that clarion call to action and to service, and I can assure you I speak for every single graduate and every single member of this community when I say that we are willing to work to make this world a better place. Thank you for joining us.